What's going on, Internet? Brandon here from Nerd Alert, and I am with Jimmy and James. Say hello, fellas.
What's up?
I do want everyone to know this is probably the last civil podcast we will have for the remainder of the year because the Guardians and the Yankees are facing off on Monday. And someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. And the other person will hear about it for at least the next 6 months. So let's just enjoy the camaraderie we have on this one. But it is a
We are lovable
season.
losers. I will put that out there. We're lovable losers.
I mean, definitely losers. I'm there for that one. But it's spooky season now. So something we were talking about with all the horror and options to go through with horror movies. Horror comedy is one that may not be, on the top of everyone's list. And we want to talk about some of our favorites.
Why'd you go, JJ? You're the youngest.
All right. Oh, I love being
Age
initiated
before beauty.
into. All right. So if I had to pick one of my top 3 favorite horror comedies, and this is in no specific order, I would have to start with Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It is this
awesome pick.
Absolutely. It is this goofy movie with Alan Tudyk, and anything with Alan Tudyk is going to be amazing already. But you have this total reversal of what you think horror is. And it's just so stupid, brilliant. Every joke lands because you don't expect it to go that way. And it blows you out of the water. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, because it is genuinely a worthwhile watch because you will laugh and you will be surprised.
I'll add to that because that is also in my top 3. It is a belly laugh. Like you just literally laugh out loud. Like I hate LOL. It's so stupid, but you cannot help yourself. There's like horrific things happening to people, but you laugh. So it's such a weird feeling to be like, oh God, that's horrible. I cannot believe that just happened. It is an awesome movie. The story's great. It's just, there's a nice twist. It is such a fun movie. Highly recommend it.
What I like about that one is both sides don't really have a full idea of what's happening to them. With Alan, with the what are they? I mean, what are their names? Or Tucker and Dale?
Tucker and Dale.
No, I was going to say something else, but the fact that they are just like thrown into being like the villains without realizing what's exactly going on, but that leads into my pick for I think it's my all-time. I don't know. I'll say all-time favorite. This will probably change by the end, but Shaun of the Dead is maybe my favorite horror comedy, and because it's the same thing. It's the zombie apocalypse. It's all the classic zombie movie tropes through the eyes of people who have no idea that it's even happening at first.
And that was I love your pick there. One of the funniest moments in that is when they I believe it's cricket mallets and they're hitting.
Oh, it's Don't Stop Me Now
to the rhythm of Queen, and I'm like, that is hilarious. As it came on the jukebox, it wasn't like it was.
It's on random.
I know. That's a great pick. Very good one.
Yeah, I thought that was so well done. Like the first time I saw it, I didn't get it at first because I thought I was going into like a zombie movie, and then I'm like, this is hilarious.
And I know a lot of people, I guess British people too, but were used to like Simon Pegg at that point from Spaced. I wasn't familiar. I didn't know him.
Definitely my first introduction
to him, and I'm like, oh my God, he's hilarious.
Yeah, that was same with Nick Frost. Like, I guess if you watched those shows, you knew who they were. But that was my first time seeing either of them, and I was like, these two guys are fucking hysterical. And it's like Edgar Wright too. I mean, that was my first introduction to him, and he's gone on to be a pretty impressive, director.
Agreed. Very much agreed. So what's number 2, James?
Ooh, number 2. I would have to go with Happy Death Day. That is absolutely brilliant. I mean, you take Groundhog Day and you make it a horror movie. What else could you ask for? It's just so brilliant in the way it's constructed. It uses, the classic hallmarks of the first loop. You're like, what the hell is happening? The second loop, you're like, okay, I'm figuring this out. The third loop, you're like, yeah, I'm going to screw crap up. And I love how the actors are so good at capturing the exact same line delivery if they aren't aware of the loop, because that is very hard to do, to capture the exact same emotion every time. It is a very hard thing to do. And it's also just funny because you have this poor college girl going in an infinite loop, getting stuck and killed and being brought back. And it's hilarious. It's a great time. And the sequel is genuinely good too. It's one of those few ones where it does not disappoint, and you'll have quite a few good laughs along the way.
I forgot how much I enjoyed both of those movies.
I gotta agree. Like I remember I didn't see that in the theater, nothing to do with anything, and I just happened to catch it. I'm like, holy crap, this is really good. Which I think we can all agree, it's rare to find a really good horror film. There are so many that are made, and you just like, oh, this sucks. So when a good one comes along, it was very surprising. What's your second one?
My second one, man. I don't know what it would be, horror comedy, but I mean, it is a comedy. I don't know. I'm just gonna Young Frankenstein would have to be on my list for sure.
Yeah,
less horror, but I mean, a comedy about Frankenstein, and I mean that is maybe my favorite Mel Brooks movie.
I do have to interject. It is Frankenstein.
I thought it was Igor. I thought it was Frankenstein. I thought it was Frankenstein. Yeah, just that one. I don't know. I thought it was cool too because whether anybody knew this or not, I thought it was common knowledge, but I don't know who knows what anymore. But he used the Frankenstein set to film that, which is cool. Just like a really cool little like addition to everything. But yeah, I mean I do like that. I like Dracula Dead and Loving It too, but I think Young Frankenstein is a lot higher on that list for me.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll similarly, not the same exact time frame, but an older movie, 80s. I'm going to go with An American Werewolf in London. John Landis. It's definitely more of horror versus Young Frankenstein, but it's so goofy, fun. There really aren't that many great werewolf horror movies. That might be one of the best, and the transformation that they do in there is really, really good.
To this day, that is my favorite transformation scene of any werewolf movie that's ever been done. It still looks so good.
Yeah, it still does. It does, and it's I love the way they use like classic music, like Blue Moon. It's just such a good movie. The soundtrack's great. The story is so simple, but it's just entertaining all the way through, and there are really good scare moments.
And it gets right into it. Like, it doesn't. It kind of gives you a brief setup, and then you're in the story. And I always like the line, "A naked American man stole my balloons," and I also like that if you ever see the credits, Miss Piggy and Kermit are credited as themselves.
That's awesome.
That's like my favorite. It says like Kermit himself, Miss Piggy herself. And I'm like, that is great.
Such an 80s thing. I love it.
I know, right?
Very cool.
All right. I guess we're at top 3 now. And I do quickly want to give an honorable mention. I just remembered Totally Killer. That is a hilarious goofy comedy. I totally forgot it existed, but that's also a great horror comedy. So check that out.
Thank you for making that an honorable mention, as that is one of my top 3.
God bless America.
No, then you start. Go to your third one.
Yeah, I was gonna say you take it away.
I have not watched even like Back to the Future that was filmed during the 80s, and then they obviously went back to the 50s. This Totally Killer is like the closest thing that wasn't filmed in the 80s that represents the 80s. As I was watching, I'm like, holy crap, I absolutely forgot that's what life was like. Like everybody is smoking. Everybody. Freaking hilarious. Cop, like literally smoking in their faces. She gets a ride from a random stranger, and just goes. And it's like, yeah, that's how it used to be. You just were like trusting and being like, well, sure, I'll go. She talks her way into enrolling in high school. And now you'd be like, you can barely get into a high school without an ID or anything. Going to the front office, they're like, yeah, just go to class. I'm from Canada, a small island. I don't care. Go for it.
I like how easy she does that shit too. Like how blown away she is by everything that she gets away with, or like the way people speak to each other.
Yeah, and there's just little random things. Like the one person has like, what are they, like, not magic stones, but they're like psychic stones. You're like, yeah, That was a thing. Of course it was. It's just like, it really literally took me back to the 80s when I was a kid. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I forgot life was really like that, because we got to this point where it's not. And it was a great little time machine, so to speak. But the story was also really good, which surprised me, because a lot of movies use that trope. And I thought I think it was on Amazon Prime when they were promoting it, I'm like, oh great, another one that's just going to use the 80s for whatever. And I'm like, nope, this was really good. So Totally Killer's in my top 3.
And let's not forget the best joke in that movie. I have edibles that are 10
The
times
best.
stronger than this.
She goes, in the future, you're going to get a gummy bear this big that has 10 times the amount of that weed.
No comment, but it's accurate.
Oh man, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And you know what I like too is like the horror storyline is a good storyline. Like, in addition to just being hilarious, like they get pretty brutal and graphic with the whole storyline. I like the name changes too when she comes back to like
that twist
time.
was hilarious. Yeah, I enjoy that movie a lot. So if you haven't seen it, go check out Totally Killer. I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I think it was a Prime original, but yeah, I get her. Actually, you guys saying that, and American Werewolf in London is always a watch every October for me, but I probably would have forgot about Totally Killer. That movie's outstanding.
If I may now jump in with my actual third, I apologize for upending the flow.
No, you're good.
I gotta go with American Psycho. One of the first movies I genuinely could not breathe because of how funny it was. And I get a lot of people are gonna be like, American Psycho is it a comedy? It's like, then you didn't get it. American Psycho is just it's funny. I don't know how else to put it. If you don't think it's funny, I don't know what you watched, but you clearly didn't get it. And
Brandon, I'm a little nervous that my son is promoting a ultra violent, brutal look at the 80s as a comedy. I'm gonna sleep with one eye open for sure.
I'm sorry. Almost every scene in American Psycho made me laugh. Like, I remember vividly the scene where he and Patrick Bateman and his girlfriend are in the car, and she's talking. He's like, "Shut up!" And it's like, why is that funny? And then when he drops the chainsaw from the stairwell and it magically kills the girl, and then when he shoots the car and it blows up, it is just
Wait, what was
violent.
What was he wearing when he had the chainsaw and he's tracking her down?
Nothing. No, just shoes.
Shoes.
Yeah, that's actually a great shot. I like the shot of the just shoes with the chainsaw.
Running around the hallway with a chainsaw and shoes.
And it's such a beautiful examination of toxic masculinity in the 80s, but it's also just really freaking funny. Like, actually, there's just you'll just end up like at a random ass scene, like before he shoots the car and it blows up, and he's like, "What?" He just shoots he shoots a random desk attendant for no reason. And then he's like trying to feed a cat. Exactly. And he's trying to feed a cat to an ATM. And it's just, it really makes you think, but then it'll also make you laugh super hard.
I would like to give an honorable mention tied to that. I don't remember who made it, but the Huey Lewis, Weird Al Yankovic video.
It was Funny or Die.
Huey Lewis takes out Weird Al. That is a hilarious parody.
That is actually all I was thinking about the entire time we were talking about this. Was I was like, remember when Huey Lewis and Weird Al did the same scene?
Make a parody of that, bitch.
It's funny you say about the example of toxic masculinity, because going back to the other one we were just talking about, the Totally, what was it? The
Killer, yeah.
Totally Killer, is how appalled she is by the way everyone talks to each other and about other people. And she's like, you cannot say that. And the guy's like, I can say whatever I want.
Yeah,
geek. Like, yeah, I don't know.
And that's one of the comments we had with the Monster Squad. It's like that holds up, except for some of the language that's used in the 80s. I mean, you don't say those things anymore. And Totally Killer highlighted some of those.
Well, Monster Squad's gonna be my pick, so I'm glad you said that, because that movie I saw as a kid, like before. Oh my God. Sorry. Hey guys, this is how, cable TV, you didn't know what was on unless you had the TV guide on. And I remember like my dad put it on and I just thought it was so cool because it had all these monsters. But at the time he didn't know what it was called. I would always like recall it like a fever dream because nobody ever knew what I was talking about. And then one day I was in Borders, and it was close to Halloween. They had a horror movie section, and I saw Monster Squad, and I was like, I think that's the movie. And it was. And that was actually, I think Alamo Drafthouse had something to do with that getting solicited for DVD or
They had a
something.
screening. It's one of their awesome posters by Tyler Stout, the Monster Squad, and they had the director and writer and all that. Some of the cast there, yeah, because I believe it was Shane Black who wrote that. Who's Lethal Weapon and Iron Man 3.
Yeah, and I didn't think that I don't think until they did that there was any sort of like way to get it on home video of any kind. So, but that movie is just so fun to me, and I think it's like a really good representation of the 80s in the horror element of it. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like horror Goonies.
Well, what's fun about that, and you might not know this, Brandon, back in the day when HBO was just starting, they would look for movies that just bombed at the box office. And Monster Squad happened to be one of those, and they would buy the rights for uber cheap, and then they would run it all the damn time. And that was one of them where I'm like, oh, cool, Monster Squad. And like you said, you never knew it was going to come on, but you knew it was going to repeat itself. So you catch bits and pieces here, whatever. And then this is great because I didn't know this. Recently, they made a documentary about the Monster Squad and how it got made and how it got popular after its release. It's called The Wolfman's Got Nards. And it's an awesome documentary, and it talks about how they're like, yeah, we were like Stan Winston did some amazing real effects in that movie. Like the makeup and the costumes are just awesome. And you're like, I thought this was just a kids movie when I saw it back in the 80s, but this, like, they really put a lot of effort and time and energy and money into this movie. And it was supposed to be sort of a reboot of the Universal Monsters. Obviously it didn't come to that because it didn't do well, but it has become an awesome movie now that it's back on video and all that stuff. Home video.
Now I have a second honorable mention. I'm really good at this. Just came back to me now. Jason X. It's so stupid. It's so dumb, but they play into it, and I think it's brilliant. Also, the scene where he's like whacking the two girls in the sleeping bag.
That's the first scene that comes to mind when you say Jason X. Is that goofy shit?
It's funny because the franchise had gotten to a point where it was so bad, just bad. And I love that tongue in cheek. They're like, we know it's bad, so we're gonna just put them into space and see what happens. It's like, good for you guys.
I thought it was a sci-fi original for the longest time, and then I saw that shit actually got like released into theaters, and I was like, you have got to be shitting me. That is insane.
In theaters.
Oh my god. Jason X, the new mask and everything. It just that's like extreme. That's like late 90s comics.
Yeah. And I think it was the last time Kane Hodder, who's the one most known as Jason, I think that was the last time he played Jason.
Pretty sure. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Well, that is going to do it for our horror comedy picks. But yeah, let's see what you guys think in the comments. Let us know your favorites, and we'll see you soon.